This is Trophy Dark, Gift of the Sea, Part 1. I'm going to start by, well, let's have us introduce ourselves. So when I call on you, please say your name, your pronouns, and anything else you would like for us to know about you. I'll start. My name is Jason. I use he, him, and I am the publisher of Trophy Dark. And I'm very excited. This is one of my favorite incursions of all of them. And I'm excited to be able to do the book version for our YouTube playlist, which is what my aims are lately. Let's go to Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben. I use he, him pronouns. I make character keepers and have just gotten into dipping my toe in writing. And yeah, I love this incursion. Looking forward to seeing it from this side.
Fabulous. Thank you. Sarah.
Hello, I am Sarah and just a big fan who enjoys playing with these nerds.
And
I
Brian.
use she, her pronouns as well.
Thanks. Brian.
I'm Brian and I use the he pronoun, and it seems like I have to plug Butter Princess because it's launching on Tuesday. So, you know, this lovely little book is starting a Kickstarter in what, 2 days? 2 days.
Pretty soon, yeah. Three, yeah. But yeah. Fantastic, wonderful. Okay, so let's do CATS. CATS, of course, is an acronym that stands for concept, aim, tone, and subject matter. I like to do this just to establish some basic expectations for what we're going to be doing over the next 2 weeks. And so the concept of Trophy Dark is a fantasy or a horror fantasy game with an emphasis on the horror part about a group of doomed treasure hunters going into a place that does not want them there. They are trying to satisfy some very expensive drive that they have, and they need lots of money to do it. And so they're going into ancient forests and hidden places and other environs in order to plunder them. But they almost always meet a terrible fate by the end. This particular incursion is Gift of the Sea. It's by Gabriel Robinson, and I don't want to say too much more about it, but it's a good one. They're all good in the trophy book. Aim. The aim of our play session today is to create characters and then introduce them and then play through rings 1 and 2. Next week, we will do rings 3, 4, and 5. The aim of the characters in the story is to get treasure and survive. And the aim of players and myself in the game is to tell a good story. And to that end, I want to point out that Trophy Dark embraces a gameplay ethos that is called play to lose, meaning you should try to keep your character alive to an extent, but ultimately you are going to be driven to betrayal. You are going to be driven perhaps to madness or some sort of other fantastic malady. You are maybe going to die by the end. Once it becomes clear that your character is going to suffer an ill fate, you should embrace that and do your best to tell the best story that you can with your ill-fated character. The tone of the game is dark. This particular incursion is very dark, and I'm excited to run it for you. But it's a sort of like full daylight dark horror. It's very like kind of folk horror, which I think is a slight change. So imagine the kinds of horror you can have under the full day sun. That's sort of what we're doing here. Subject matter. Trophy Dark, helpfully, for each of the incursions, has a content warning on it. I will read those now. Body horror, drowning, human sacrifice, religion, sharks, shipwrecks, and storms. Those are the things that are pretty hard to avoid in this incursion. And so we'll have sort of a roaming lines and veils on that. Otherwise, we'll have some safety tools on the table, the X card, lines and veils, and the open door policy. These 3 players know exactly what those things mean, so I'm not going to go into any more detail. And so with all of that said, I will grab the link to the character keeper. We will make character keepers. If you're watching the video, we'll be back in 0.5 seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and introduce these characters. I'm going to go in the order of the sheet. And so we don't need to know too much at this point, just the character's name, their occupation, their background, and their drive. You can also tell us their rituals if you would like to talk about that as well. If you know anything about their drive more than just the sentence, you can tell us, but it's okay if you don't, because we'll explore that as we play. And so, Brian, please tell us about Ahmed.
All right, I am playing Ahmed. I am currently a sorcerer with skills in alchemy, rituals, and symbols. And my background is an errant knight with skill in dueling. My drive is to retrieve the lost banner of the Nameless Legion, and I'm going to tie that in with my rituals here of Leviathan to draw forth a creature from the deep, and Liar to contact a spirit who can answer a question, but only falsely, with the notion that we lost that banner in a shipwreck and or naval battle. You know, the ship went down, but the banner went with it. And I've been actively trying to recover it, and thus pursued this career as a sorcerer to try and do what I couldn't do as a sort of a mundane knight.
So it sounds like the banner has like religious significance or like some other kind of like really important. This particular banner has like some kind of extra special significance then.
Yeah, we need it back desperately. I'll figure out why as we play.
That's good. Fantastic. Thank you. Sarah, please tell us about Devine.
Devine is an herbalist with skills in perception, plants, and remedies. My background is a wandering refugee with another skill in disguise. And my drive is to resurrect the Cull of Darawan. And I do not have much more than that at the moment.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fantastic. Thank you. I think there's a lot of information about Darawan in Trophy Loom. So if you have access to that on the break, you maybe can look into that a little bit. But you don't have to. Doesn't matter. Ben, tell us about Torum, please.
Torum uses he, him pronouns. He is a leech, giving him the skills in blood deduction and surgery, and comes from a background of being a heretical inquisitor, so he's good at secrets. And his drive is to pay the toll of the Emerald Bridge, still figuring that one out. But he's carrying the ritual Scry to observe a location in spirit form and compel to force a creature to perform a non-lethal task or free a creature from such a effect.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. With the characters introduced, I want to just talk about one mechanical thing about the game that I think is worth emphasizing. And that is that, well, it's a gameplay thing more than a strict mechanical thing. The game is very collaborative. I have an incursion, but it is a pretty, I don't want to say skeletal is not quite the right word, but it doesn't really have like a story. It's more just like a sequence of locations and narrative beats filled with lots of like interesting details and things, but the story really comes from what you all make of it and what we all make of it. And one of the ways that you get to collaborate on the story is through the risk roll. Risk roll is the role that handles most things in the game related to overcoming obstacles and completing tasks. Anytime you do something risky, you do the risk roll. And part of that risk roll is what's called the Devil's Bargain. And the Devil's Bargain is essentially a thing that other players and myself can offer you when you're making a roll. And it's a thing in the fiction that will happen no matter what if you accept it. And by accepting it, you get an extra die for your risk roll. And so an example of a Devil's Bargain might be, let's say that, for example, Devine is jumping over a crevasse down below, which is the deep ocean, right? You're jumping over this crevasse, and someone offers, well, no matter what, Devine, when you jump over this crevasse, your herbalist pouch is going to fall into the crevasse. And so if you succeed at the roll, it's because it slipped out of your pocket or bag. If you fail, it's because you also fell down into the crevasse along with your herbalist pouch. That's a very simple Devil's Bargain, but it's not a bad one necessarily. A more interesting Devil's Bargain might be, no matter what, Devine, a representative of the cult of Darawan is on the other side, or perhaps even better, since the cult is, I guess, dead apparently. On the other side, there's a shrine to the cult, the old cult of Darawan. And so now that's an interesting new element to the story that probably no one foresaw, that was created by virtue of the Devil's Bargain. And so that's sort of how the game works. You get to offer other players interesting things to happen, and if they accept them, they get bonuses on their dice. And so, with all that said, I'm going to go ahead and do a brief introduction of the incursion, and we'll take a short break. But for now, our incursion is called Gift of the Sea. Who knows what secrets dwell beneath the ocean vast and wide, or what became of those who tried to fight the turning tide? The night is dark, the storm is fierce, but nothing should we fear. Come round and light the candles bright, for spring is almost here. We bind the saplings, wreathed in green, as folk did long before. We crown a maiden as our queen, and cast her from the shore. For as the land gives gifts to those who sow and reap the grain, the sea in turn must have its due when Greentide comes again. O mother of the endless tides, O queen of depths unseen, accept these humble gifts we bring upon your mantle green. Fill up our nets with gleaming fish, and spare our sailors brave. For all the rest, take what you must beneath the rolling wave. I will see you all in 5 minutes. Beyond the forest lies a jagged rocky coast where, for generations now, a small seaside village has observed the rites of Greentide. Each spring, as the first green shoots emerge, village elders weave sapling branches and seaweed into an effigy in the likeness of a young woman. The sculpture is filled with gifts before it is cast into the waves as an offering to the Queen of Tides, along with prayers for a bountiful catch and protection from storms. This ancient tradition harkens back to an age when the ancestors would crown a young woman as the Tide Queen, kind of like a butter princess. Crown her as a Tide Queen and offer her to the sea in sacrifice. Chieftains and princes would travel far to attend the ceremony, pledging gold, jewels, and the finest of crafts. To this day, local fishermen never leave shore without paying her their respects. For the tide, they say, must have its due. Strange as the customs of an isolated village may be, it has not escaped the notice of keen treasure hunters such as yourselves that centuries of offerings and shipwrecks have left a great hoard of untouched riches beneath the waves. You know of the island offshore where the offerings are tipped overboard. You have heard rumors of a cove there, just visible at low tide. Superstitious villagers avoid it, but you know better than to believe their tales. This incursion has the theme of the tides, the movement of the tides. It aims to convey the presence of the sea as a living, powerful entity. As the tides come in, things are hidden, and as the tides recede, things are revealed. And as we begin ring 1, the tide is low, waiting to rise and meet the shore as you approach this village. It is actually getting to be fairly late in the day. You've been walking along the shore. At one point, you came upon a huge osprey nest with scraps of clothing and stolen tools woven into it. At another point, you're reminded of the ocean as a place of predators when a fish-filled pelican was suddenly dragged under the waves by a shark that leapt out of the water. Devine, you have wandered into waist-high water, and you can see, because the water is so clear, that there's a submerged skull there, overgrown with seaweed like long, waving hair. And the village is up ahead. An old fisherman is hobbling in your direction. And with a sly wink, He says, "You are not the first to seek the riches of her sea." A question before we begin. You have all heard tales of the horrors at sea which await those who cross it carelessly. One tale in particular sticks out about this particular island cove where you believe these treasures have accumulated, which is that a vengeful sea witch dwells on the island, calling storms upon those who wronged her. I would like each of you to say why you suspect there is some truth to those tales.
I'll go first. As I have spent many years on the road and gathering my herbalism skills from every wise woman and so-called witch along the way, I have heard tale of very thoughtful and powerful woman who has receded from humanity to live in her own isolation, and I seek her knowledge.
Back in Fort Durin, I once treated a man from this village who told me tales of the sea witch and the song she would sing at night to lure uncareful sailors.
In my time trying to track down this banner that was lost beneath the waves, I've interviewed many a sailor, and a number have shown me the evidence of her curse, where their arm is like the fingers are kind of melded together into almost a claw-like hook that's barely usable. Makes it quite hard to handle the lines on a ship.
This old fisherman says, "You are not the first to seek the riches of her sea."
I seek only knowledge and the ability to unite my people.
You seek only knowledge. Have you no concern for knowledge that should not be sought getting out into the world?
So long as you are kind and thoughtful and resourceful, there is no knowledge that you can harm another person with or would come to harm you.
Man looks up at you, Torum. What about you? Are you just a innocuous seeker of knowledge?
I see no reason to dissemble with you, sir. My knowledge has monetary value. That's what I seek.
Interesting, interesting. And you, friend? I suppose you also are not here to seek the treasures gathered in the cove.
I seek an item lost that could easily have been commingled with treasures, and that item belongs to me, and I am here to reclaim it, should it be here.
He says, "Well, you have arrived on a very, very auspicious day for people with such harmless concerns. You are here during Greentide. Indeed, the day-long festival is entering its nadir as we speak. I do wonder what the village elders would say if I were to go and tell them that a trio of scurrilous treasure hunters had arrived and perhaps might bring forth the wrath of the Tide Queen."
I certainly had no idea we arrived on such an auspicious day. Good tidings to you. Good green tidings, of course.
Oh, of course. I will hold my tongue.
And the
If
price?
you would be willing to part with something of material value, which the three of you have ably demonstrated you have no concern for.
Devine, I will rummage through my medicinal pack of dried herbs and compulses and little bottles and vials of venoms and things, and I will pull out a little bottle and hand it to this man. This will ease all of the pain in your joints, and you will sleep very soundly tonight.
And he undoes the little bottle and tips it just enough so that a little tiny drop beads on the edge of it. And he goes,
Yes, I'm afraid it's not very nice tasting.
very well. And you too?
Well, please.
I'll take it then.
Well, Torum will crouch down and unroll his little toolkit and pull out a bottle with some powder in it. And he'll hand it and say, and for the pain that will cause you in the morning, something effective.
He takes it and he puts just the tiniest little bump of the powder on his hand and snorts it up. Says, oh. Yes, yes, yes. And you? What will you use to buy my silence?
I offer you no chemicals. I can see by the way you walk, old man, that knee of yours hurts. Give me the bottom of your sandal and I will inscribe a symbol that will make you walk without pain.
Says, he looks at you sort of sideways and says, And he takes the sandal off and hands it to you.
All right. Pull out one of my little knives and carefully etch in a symbol from what? I still don't know my Caldurian references enough.
Don't know all your saints.
I don't know all my saints. Carving a symbol that
of the relevant saint.
Of the relevant saint, yes, there we go. That is related to traveling with ease. And handing back the sandal kind of formally, saying, this alone adds value to the shoe to you or to anyone who wears it.
He takes it. He does a little jig. He's like, yes, I see. Very well, very well. You shall come to the village as my guests. Come. And he leads you to the celebration.
Did you see what Ben just typed in the chat? A homeopath, a naturopath, and a surgeon walk into an isolated village.
Indeed. The villages. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, sir, I cannot. What is your name?
He looks at you and he says, Madam, I gave my name to the sea many, many years ago. I whispered it beneath the waves in order to earn the love of a mer wench. It belongs to her now, and it shall forever. I will not speak it loud ever again.
Wenches do like to be called women these days.
He looks at you and he says, have you ever met a member of the merfolk, madam?
Oh, but once or twice in my travels.
He grunts and laughs, and then continues bringing you to the village. The village is in full revelry for the Greentide Festival. And on the shore, the elders are crafting the effigy of a tall woman, her features taking form as seaweed and reeds are woven over crude driftwood skeletons. There is a long line of people who appear to be waiting in order to give gifts to the effigy. And if you watch it for a time, you'll see that the elders receive the gifts, and the elders take the gifts over to the effigy and offer the gift. And sometimes it's a beautiful seashell or some fine silk thread, and the elders weave it into the effigy of this woman. Sometimes it's a song, and the villager is allowed to approach a little closer to the effigy, and they sing their song, a song of heartbreak of the sea, a song pleading for good tidings, for gentle weather, for bountiful catch. And this is going on for a time. There are other things related to the revelry. There are tables set out with food and things like that. And the village itself is not very big, probably less than a few dozen huts. But in any case, I want to go around the table and find out what everyone is interested in doing. I will remind you that what you're trying to ultimately do is get to the little island where that effigy will be taken. So Torum.
Torum is, in his work as an inquisitor, used to doing what one must to get one's way. And so he will approach the effigy with his bundle of tools and pull out a rather fine-looking surgical knife and weave it into the seaweed.
Well, if you approach the effigy, somebody will try to stop you. They will say, no, no, no. Only the elders or those with an appropriate gift may approach the effigy.
I am sure you will find this an appropriate gift, my good sir. You'll hold it out, handle first, of course.
The elder is a tall, gray-haired man wearing robes of seafoam green. And what is it you present?
A surgical knife.
He says, and why is this an adequate offering to the Tide Queen?
This is symbolic of my role, my calling, my meaning and purpose in life. I use this to help. I wish to make a good impression.
Come back to that. Ahmed, what are you doing?
Are they building this effigy on land, or is it like on a
It's on the
barge?
beach.
On the
Well, it's on a, yeah, it's like on a wood like pallet that they'll eventually
They're probably
push
gonna
out.
float it or load it onto
Yeah.
a vessel to get it. To
You
the
can
island.
actually see some boats that are also pulled up along the pier that are, they look like they're decorated for ceremony, very colorfully decorated.
They're gonna go meander the pier, trying to see if there's like a boat that's going to clearly be loaded with this thing, and or a boat that can be stolen or stowed away upon.
Intriguing. As you're at the pier, you'll actually see a woman sitting on the edge of the pier, her face in her hands. She's crying. What do you do?
Ooh, I'll sort of sit down, close to her, not invading her personal space, but close enough to be on the pier myself, enjoying the whatever, and say, the festival usually is a cause for celebration. Why are you so sad?
She looks up and she says, my tears are both tears of sadness and joy. Joy because we are going to please the Queen of Tides. Sadness because that appeasement comes at such a great price.
What price is that?
And tears begin streaking down her cheeks, and she just breaks down crying. Davine, what are you doing?
I too had a gift for the Queen of Tides. I clipped a lock of the seaweed that had grown from that skull that I was investigating in the up here. And I would go and offer it to an elder, preferably a woman, if there is one.
There is. Her hair is itself reminiscent of the seaweed hair because it is quite wild and unkempt, but also woven with bits of kelp and shell. And she also wears the seafoam green robes. And when you reach the front of the line with your gift, she will come up and she will meet you.
I offer this as a symbol of the Queen's wisdom. This is life from death, and a symbol of her ever growing power and wisdom in this circle of life.
The elder says, would you like for us to add this to the construct, or would you like to do it yourself?
I would be so honored.
And she spreads her arms to show you the way towards the effigy. But you're there first, Torum. You approach the effigy with your knife, was it?
Yes.
The effigy is quite built up at this point. And as you get closer, you hear sounds coming from it. Make a ruin roll. And I don't know if the die roll is working right now, to be honest. Looks like it might be, but I don't know.
I tested it. It should be
Okay.
fine.
Yep, it's working.
Yeah,
I'm going up.
you got a 6. How do you feel right now when you realize that there's someone or something in there?
My first instinct after years of leechhood is to help. But I have spent many years as an inquisitor, and so they must deserve it.
Indeed, indeed. I owe you a condition because your ruin went up. And I'm going to tell you what it is now, and you can figure out how it looks in the role play. But I will tell you that as you as you withdraw your hand, you see that a tiny barnacle has formed on the back of it. Ahmed, the woman seems inconsolable. What do you do?
Say, as you're crying, I think sometimes it helps to cast away your grief. Maybe let those tears fall into the ocean. It might appease the beings below to share your salty brine with them.
She looks up at you with the most quizzical look. And she says, "You are not from around here, are you, friend?"
No, but I travel the oceans.
You understand that the ocean itself is fathomless, an infinite source of salt water.
Every drop counts. What is an ocean but, drop after drop gathered together over time?
This actually seems to have briefly raised her spirits, and she gets up and says, well, outsider, are you hungry?
Always.
And she will take you to the food stalls. And here, let's do a paint the scene. This is a fishing community, but it's also a special day. What sorts of fare is on offer for the Greentide, of which anyone can take freely?
Typically, this village sustains themselves on fish, but for Greentide, as the water recedes out, they harvest every mollusk and clam and shellfish that they can and serve them with spices that are hard to come by. So they grind them in the hill and they prepare them all year just for this one scallop dish.
Those, I don't know exactly what they're called, those really immense clamshells, the huge ones that are kind of rippled almost. So
Like an abalone?
like a what? I don't know. I don't know the
Oh.
name of it, but they're huge. One of those is sort of like a steamer with heat going below it, and within is sort of just a melange of tentacles and soft-shelled crabs just jumbled together with tons of red chili oil floating on the top.
Where many celebrations might have a pig on a spit or something like that, there is a rather large shark that is hanging above the water with a nest of seaweed coming out of its mouth.
Devine, you approach to weave your offering into the effigy when you hear a voice from within the effigy. It is a groggy sound, the sound of someone who has been drugged. You know what such people sound like in your line of work. But they say, help me, please. Make a ruin roll. You got a 4. What is your current?
My current ruin is 3.
So you're going up as well. How does this make you feel?
After the initial shock of finding a living being inside of this statue that is about to be dumped into the ocean, it occurs to me that this is the ritual and this has happened for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
I owe you a condition as well. Your condition is that when you pull your hand away, you see the tiniest little crab crawling around. The crab, if you watch it for a time, I think it's actually using its pinchers to carefully cleave away a bit of callus on your knuckle bone. And then it just skitters up your sleeve.
Yep, okay.
The evening is quite celebratory. All the offerings are made, songs are sung, drink is flowing. Ahmed, what's the nature of their preferred spirit?
Hmm. Like a rice wine grown in some inner marsh, that the rice being grown in the marsh, I mean, but then they as they serve it, they pour a little bit of salt water over the top.
This is their preferred libation. Do all of you participate in the festivities of the evening?
I will.
I think Torm is more of an observer. He will try some of the drink, but just a bit.
Devine has learned through too many villages just like this that it is unwise to drink the local fare. Just does not agree with my stomach. Perhaps I will sit along the shoreline, maybe moving that little crab down to my toes to see if it will groom any other calluses. It's natural. It's fine. It's completely fine.
Indeed,
And
indeed.
consider a route to the island.
Get a bite of rotisserie shark and another glass of this rice wine and enjoy myself, thinking of alchemical combinations and ways that might improve the flavor.
Yes. Ahmed, this woman, she introduces herself as Corva. Her mood has lightened significantly as she's getting drunker. But she keeps looking at the effigy, which stands there towering over the festivity on the shore. The encroaching tide occasionally shifting it in the sand, but not so much that it will come loose. But it does make it sort of wobble and weave as if it were alive. It is just moonlight and torchlight now.
I'll say to her, surely this is not your first festival. What makes this one so different?
She says, "It is our custom to sacrifice a girl to the Queen of Tides. A custom that we have engaged in for many centuries here. Though all we ever gain from it is just not to be swallowed completely by the sea."
Has there ever been a time when the village chose to not sacrifice, and what were the repercussions?
I have no memory of such a thing. I myself managed to avoid this fate when I was young because I was considered an impure vessel.
They only take the pure ones, huh? Why is the queen so in need of a pure sacrifice?
Who can say? We just do as the village elders instruct, one day a year. And
Have you
then,
seen this queen with your own eyes?
no, never. Though I have heard stories that there is no woman beneath the waves, there is no queen beneath the waves, but rather it is just a crone, hateful and wretched, that lives on that island, and that we appease her in some cruel, ironic joke. But it's not the sort of thing one speaks aloud around here. I don't mind telling you because you're not from around here.
So I take it you're fond of this year's chosen sacrifice, the close to you.
Yes, yes, I am. And she says, and right now, all I wish to do is to continue drinking this rice wine and further explore the nature of my impurity. Perhaps with you, sir.
I'll give her a little toast with my glass of rice wine. No way to, oh, I don't know, liberate and rescue this being close to you.
And she says, I would like that very much, but then we would have to run. And where would we go?
True, true.
Meanwhile, Torum, one of the village elders, the tall gray-haired man, he steps next to you and he says, by your manner of bearing and your dress, I know what you are or were.
Indeed.
I spent some time in Ambaret and thereabouts, speaking the truth of the Queen of Tides. And men and women such as you made our lives very difficult.
Should I apologize?
I seek no apology from you, though I do wonder what brings you here. I'm pleased, of course, that you seem to have been gifted the revelation of the tides, or at the very least, you maintain a certain amount of respect for what we do here. But nevertheless, I'm curious, what is your intention? If you meant to stomp our faith out, you would have started doing so already or brought more people with you. And so the question must be begged, why are you here?
My perspective on this world and the meaning of those beyond us has broadened considerably. I wish to learn. I wish to help where I can, and I wish to retire in comfort with a clear conscience.
Intriguing. They say that a man's life is a sort of cosmic progression of the tides. I would say that for a time in your old profession, the tide was in, and the truth of your soul was hidden. And now the tide is out, and more is revealed. I wish you good
Generous
tidings.
interpretation.
I wish you good tidings on your journey. And yet you do not drink or partake of our bounty?
I must admit that alcohol does not agree with me. I become,
perhaps old habits die hard.
Perhaps. You
Back
would
on
not like the
beach.
man I became.
Back on the beach, you were joined by the nameless old fisherman, Devine. He sits down next to you. He's quite drunk. And he says, so, was it everything you hoped it would be? Did you find the knowledge that you seek?
Well, I'm afraid the knowledge I seek is out there. And I point to the island.
There is one sure way to get there.
By cutting open the effigy and stuffing myself inside like that poor girl.
No, no, no. She won't make it that far. But not disconnected from the proper way. I'd be willing to tell you, of course. If you were willing to.
Seek more of my remedies.
Yes, yes. I was wondering if perhaps you had something that could help with jellyfish stings.
Well, you're supposed to piss on your leg. You don't need my help for that.
Yes, but when you reach my age, madam, urinating is, well, it's almost as painful as the jellyfish sting.
Of course. Well, I happen to have an excellent remedy for both. I start rummaging. Now, tell me your secrets, old man.
Well, it is very simple. Those who have given an offering to the effigy are entitled to be in the parade tomorrow morning at sunrise. The boats go out. They go out approaching the island in order to give the offering to the Queen of Tides. It would be easy enough to break away from the group and paddle your way over to the cove.
Well, that's excellent news. I really do appreciate it. There's a woman out there. I have to ask a question to the Queen herself.
Don't tell me you believe the rumors that there's a witch on the island.
I believe in many rumors.
Well, it is
suspicious or
all
otherwise.
true. There is a witch on that island. She is the lover of the Queen of Tides. Yes. The Queen of Tides cast her out. And so she stays on that island. She stays on that island writing terrible songs of love and betrayal, throwing them into the water. And every time her sad tales break the crest, storms royal. I myself met her once.
You don't say.
Yes.
This wouldn't happen to be a tall tale, would it? Pulling the leg of some stranger from out of town?
That's true. I was taller in my youth. She was beautiful. Almost as beautiful as the merwench that captured my heart.
Merwoman?
I have fallen in love thrice, madam. First with the sea. Second with the mer woman. And third, the sea witch.
Witches are women too, good sir.
Mayhaps there will be a fourth.
I think that you are so in your cups you're not going to remember this conversation. But I do want you to try and take these simultaneously with a glass of water. And I hand him 2 little bottles. You should piss like a racehorse. But for now, I'd like my privacy while I consider this.
He passes out. And so passes ring 1. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back and do ring 2. Ring 2. The tide comes in, bearing the ocean's bounty. You all fall asleep somewhere in the village that night. Ahmed, perhaps, in Corva's bed. Devine on the beach. Torum, you are offered a bed in one of the elders' huts. Everyone, please tell me how your dreams were affected by the Tide Queen.
For the entire night, as Torum slept, the sound of the waves would transform to the mumbled pleas from within the effigy, and he'd wake up and have to listen and convince himself that's not the sound before falling asleep again.
I think that your barnacle condition is getting worse. How so?
I think the first thing he did when he had a bit of privacy was to slice it off. And the first time he woke up, he checked under the bandage to find that not only is it back, it was spreading, and there were now several barnacles heading toward his wrist.
Thank you.
Devine has the same dream. It's always been the nightmare of how she and her family and all of the worshippers were chased and hounded out of our temple and cast into the world to wander with no home of our own, our faith only our own. But in this version of the dream is as if the surging of the tide is pulling her perspective closer and further away. Every time that she's experiencing it, it is both near and far to her at the same time. She doesn't understand and wakes up in a fright, pulls a tiny crab who's been clipping her hair at the back of her neck, tosses it away.
Ahmed?
For me, and I see beneath the waves, the lost banner of my legion is pulsing towards me. It's almost there. I reach to grab it, and it gets drawn back, kind of inexorably, to and fro, to and fro.
Why might the Tide Queen consider the banner of the Nameless Legion a fabulous treasure?
It is both woven from and embroidered additionally with silks that are from a much farther away land than this region. Their colors are just beyond anything that she's seen in her underwater realm.
In the early morning, fog rolls over the land and sea, bringing with it a chill and dead silence. That silence is eventually broken as sea shanties echo on the salty air, tragic tales and dire warnings. And the people begin to rouse themselves. They let the sun get a little higher in the sky on account of their hangovers. And as the sun is approaching midday, you can hear the gathering, the boats being pulled together, songs being sung around the effigy. For just a brief period of time, momentarily, you hear what seems to be the screaming of a young woman, but those sounds are subdued quickly enough. And you can join the boats. Corva cannot bear to be on the boat, even though she's entitled to. And so she says, Ahmed, you can take her place. The other two of you made offerings and therefore are entitled to join the boats. The fishing boats, and indeed the people, are wearing bright colors. colors of celebration. The boats themselves are decked with ribbons and bells and the first flowers of spring. The brightness is actually a contrast to what is a very gray, overcast sky. A question. Tell me about the boat you decided to get in. What about the way it's decorated drew you to it?
It is the one that has the most plants upon it, all the flowers and boughs of greenery and such. It is the most herbalist. It is to my liking.
This one I'm in has a pair of walrus tusks running off the prow that remind me of the elephant tusk, which suspends the banner that I'm seeking.
The boat that I've chosen is the least decorated, the most practical, and the easiest to perhaps go more unnoticed than noticed in.
The procession of fishing boats heads in the direction of the island. They plot out slowly. You can see each of your companions. You're each within voice distance of one another. The songs of celebration become more somber as you get closer to the island. And before the boats reach the island, they join in a sort of semicircular formation. And the lead boat in the procession, the one that the effigy is on, the one that the elders are in, is rowed out into the center of this semicircle. The elders lift up songs of praise to the Queen of Tides, or perhaps send them below. But in any case, their prayers are called out loudly. Queen of Tides, accept this gift, accept this sacrifice, and all her offerings, so that you may, in your grace, bless us with bountiful catch, with calm winds, with settled seas. And they tip the effigy over into the water. What are the three of you doing?
I am curious. I wouldn't be watching the effigy itself. I'd be watching the shoreline to see if there was any movement or if I could see anything on the island. But with the fog and I don't know what distance, I don't know if I'd be able to find anything in that.
What are you hoping to see?
Potentially a witch.
Yeah. Interesting. Torum, what are you doing?
How close are these boats to each other?
Fairly close. What do you have in mind?
I was thinking I would be making my way over to join one of the others. Perhaps as everyone else was busy praying, just carefully.
Certainly. Ahmed, what are you doing?
I'm going to quietly, kind of casually reach my hand beneath the waves and begin the beckoning gesture, which is the start of the Leviathan ritual. I'm going to try and summon forth a creature from the deep in this moment.
In order to do what?
To impress the locals with the drastic change in circumstance. If they have not seen anything yet, I want to make something arrive. And then hopefully follow that up with my other ritual, lyre, and perhaps converse with this being and find out where this banner is.
Oh, intriguing.
Sort of look at the offering I brought you. I didn't bring it, but the Leviathan doesn't know that.
Yeah. Indeed not. The effigy is dipped into the water upon the cold, salty water touching the skin of the offering woven inside the effigy. She snaps out of whatever fugue state she was in, drug-addled state, and begins screaming in terror. Someone on the boat next to you, Devine, says, "This is always the hardest part." As the effigy, which floats surprisingly well, sinks slowly into the water, the girl's screams piercing through the sounds of gulls and waves. A particularly zealous celebrant in another boat says, listen to her sing. She sings for her queen." As the girl is screaming.
I lean back over to the first villager who whispered to me, and I say, death is all we could ever ask for in this life. At least hers has purpose.
Nevertheless, everyone roll ruin. And it's not working. Great. Okay, so if you have a six-sided die in front of you, please roll a six-sided die. So it looks like you got a 3, Devine.
I did.
So your ruin stays where it is. Ahmed,
I had a 2.
yours does as well. And Torum.
4.
So how are you all receiving this? Devine, you've already kind of said, like, well, you feel like maybe this is a purpose being served, which is intriguing. Ahmed?
So many of my friends and comrades have disappeared beneath the waves that it just seems that I'm almost resigned to it. This is a stranger even, so I feel kind of distant.
I think Torum has very little actual opinion on it. It was inevitable from the time he heard the voice, and they have more things to concern themselves with.
Eventually the screaming stops as the effigy sinks enough below the water, and eventually the effigy itself sinks entirely. Devine, you can see on the shore, through the mists, a figure lurking, lurching, crawling in misty shadow. As the girl was screaming, the thing on the shore sent up a song as well. A song that could be mistaken for the particularly frenzied, or the cries of a particularly frenzied seagull. And then it stops when the effigy goes beneath the waves. Ahmed, You were hoping to summon a Leviathan. Draw forth the creature from the deep. Ben, Sarah, we all get to say what we think could happen if this die roll fails.
Let's see, what could go wrong? The Kraken could consume us all.
Thinking something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
It could work too well, and there are too many to hope to for you to hope to control.
Intriguing. You have the rituals skill, so you have your first light die, and second light die on a devil's bargain. Any offers from the table? My offer is this: no matter what, whatever is on the shore will do magic as well.
No matter what, the arrival of this Leviathan will crack your boat and you will begin to sink.
Maybe more of a metaphorical take on Leviathan, but there is someone of the deep amongst these people that will become very aware of what you're doing.
Let's go with Jason's idea and see what the being on the shore does when they start doing their version of magic. 2 light and a dark.
2 light in the dark, yeah.
That is a 6 light is what that is.
Hey, very good. You succeed. Describe the summoning and arrival of the Leviathan.
I know you all are picturing something gigantic from the name of this, but I was actually picturing like Leviathan light, like just a really big walrus or something that comes up out of the water, but they've never seen anything physically respond to this. Let's go with the, as the effigy's tipping in, a tentacle kind of like snakes up, grabs it, yanks it under, and then in that sort of displaced water, it bobs up out of the surface briefly, and I'm assuming the people react accordingly.
They do.
From there, I kind of want to chuck as fast as I can into a second ritual lyre and try and pry information from this beastie about what's below the waves and where I'm going to find this banner.
You will first have to contend with whatever the creature on the shore is doing, whoever this person is. They call out. They call out in a voice that rings across the waves, where everyone can hear it. There's already been like a cry, a hue and a cry. Some people consider this to be a sign of the Tide Queen's beneficence. She has sent one of her avatars. Others, noting that this walrus-like creature has multiple heads and tentacles, consider this to be a curse. She is displeased. She is displeased with the offering. And others are like, no, no, she sends us an emissary from the deep. There's a lot of chaos. The elders are like, be calm, be calm. And they are calling out to this like creature that is now just like sort of in the center of the semicircle, bobbing and weaving, letting out terrible, multi-voiced, guttural barks. They're calling out, speak to us, lurker below, what would you have of us? Speak. But then the woman on the shore, her voice drowns all. You can hear it like thunder up above, echoing. See how they disrespect you, Saint Exodius. See how they so casually call forth your children. They have long forgotten the power of the deep. Show them now, sister of the Leviathan. Show them now their folly. And the creature begins bellowing and thrashing, and its large, leathery tentacles, its multiple flippers and tails begin thrashing and flailing, crushing boats, people screaming as they're pushed under. This has gotten out of hand very quickly, Ahmed. Torum, I think you're in the same boat as Ahmed, and you need to tell me how you are going to escape this situation. It's much closer to reach the shore, and indeed the shore is your ultimate goal, or your next step of your goal. What do you do?
I think this feels like an opportunity, and I will use compel to use the creature to separate us from the others and wash us to shore.
Indeed. I love it. What could go wrong, Brian, Sarah?
Are you compelling the creature to like go in that direction while you go this direction, kind of a thing?
Or to separate us from the other boats.
Well, I'm sorry, we're in boats on the water, so what could go wrong is that in doing so, your boat is also flippered and somehow damaged, and you begin to sink.
I think that you are pierced by two sets of massive walrus tusks and rent in two.
I was going to go with definitely a pierced, but I hadn't pictured a fatal injury, more just a incapacitated sort of injury. Trailing blood in the water is probably not good here in a place where they cook sharks.
Probably not. Do you have a relevant skill, Torum?
Secrets?
If you can justify it somehow.
I am very good at compelling people to spill their secrets, and I've learned much about rituals.
Oh, interesting.
These heretical actions.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I'll take it. Yeah. And so that's one light die. Devil's bargains. My bargain is you'll be pursued by this creature.
Seconded. All in favor.
Do we know more about your need to pay the toll of the Emerald Bridge yet?
I actually looked at Loom during the break, and that is a beautiful green savanna. And I think to make your way there and get a spot of land to build a homestead is quite expensive, and you must pay the community there for the honor.
This Leviathan walrus being will agree to your terms, but essentially extracts further payment, like whatever treasure you pull from that island belongs to that walrus.
I think I'll go with the walrus pursuing. Seems good to make friends.
2 light dice, 1 dark. Go for it.
Uh, 5 light.
5 light. The complication is going to be Devine is cut off from the escape route. If you're okay with that, then we'll let it roll. Otherwise, you can add dark die.
Yeah, I think he's okay with that.
Describe how you and Ahmed are able to escape.
I managed to hold my concentration just enough to reach out with my will to this creature and convince it that my will is its will. And the thrashing seems a little more purposeful if you know what to look for, as it divides our boat. And I think as much as I try to direct it to pull Devine as well, we are also divided. And as Ahmed and I are sent toward the island, just on the other side of this thrashing creature, we lose sight of Devine's boat entirely.
Devine, that's because you got caught in a whirlpool. Your boat is rapidly spinning in a small whirlpool, about to be sucked under. One of the people in your boat stands up and says, "A portal to the Tide Queen's palace." And they like jump in and go under.
Safe tidings.
What do you do?
I pluck the prettiest flower from the prow of the boat and take 2 petals between my fingers. I place them just here on my collarbone, and I blink and teleport to shore.
That's one of your rituals, huh?
It
Blink.
is. Yeah.
I love it. Sounds good. Let's talk about failure, Brian, Ben.
Just channel all of the Star Trek mishaps.
I'm going to say that you blink directly into the hut of the witch.
I was thinking you blink to the far shore.
Yeah.
The ritual says that I can only blink to a place I can see. Does that
but
prevent
this would be a failure, though. So
a failure of the
yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I don't see. I mean,
I don't have anything better than this.
I might offer mine as a devil's bargain too, but we'll see. Let's talk about dice. Do you have a relevant skill?
perception.
Because you can
I
see.
feel like I can
Yeah.
see where I'm going.
You can literally see the shore.
Like,
yeah, it's good.
Yep.
I'll take it.
And then my ritual.
Yeah, I'll take it. My offer is this: you blink into the hut of the witch, or whatever that is there.
Is the creature I saw that compelled everybody to, well, it's still on the shore?
That I don't know about, but
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Wherever you end up with this, it is it's last night.
With the ritual, it says a creature you touch teleports to a spot. You can see that as you're casting this, the person in the sacrificial effigy sort of breaks loose enough to get an arm up and grab a hold of your leg, and they go with you, and everybody sees it.
Oh, so they got roiled by the chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry, what's your character's name? Devine arrives on shore, but people see that the sacrifice is with Devine.
Yeah. Those are good offers.
Yeah. I think Witch's Hut. Final answer.
Very good. You got risk 2-1, 2 light, 1 dark.
That is the 6th light.
All right, 6 light. You succeed. And you blink into a room. A small hut with clay walls. A hearth in the center, or at least a fire pit with a kettle over it. A bed, a table. And you haven't gone too far because you can still hear the chaos out in the water. Torum and Ahmed, just pick up the scene with you all managing to scramble to shore. What does that look like?
Picturing me almost comically trying to be like, as we're getting shoved ahead, I'd like to ask you some questions. It's not quite working the way I wanted it to.
Row, you fool, or we'll get to ask way too many questions. And I think as much dignity as Torin would like to maintain during this, it all goes out the window as they're flailing through the water.
You don't understand, Torm. I brought this here. I brought this beast. I have questions to ask it. This is not the way it's supposed to go.
That was my fault, but we can discuss that later.
I think as you pull your boat up to shore, you realize you're the only ones pulling your boat up to shore. The rest of the people who have joined the procession are screaming in the water, some in terror, some in ecstasy. You see people pierced on tusks as if it was a shrike, piercing people on bloody tusks. You see the great bulk and corpus thrashing around, smashing boats. But eventually there is calm. And the two of you are collapsed on the beach. An eventful way. An eventful way of reaching your target. Sorry, Ahmed, what were you saying?
I also missed where you said an eventful way to do what to the target?
To reach your target.
To reach the target, yes.
Yeah.
I just was on the beach saying kind of lamentfully, like I had no intention to decimate this village in such a way, but maybe the force of nature had saw a moment to I don't know, have some form of retaliation.
We've made it. That's important. It's all that's important.
True. Is the boat in shape enough to get us back? Try and inspect the hull for walrus punctures.
Pretty badly damaged, actually.
They've lived here for enough time. There must be something on this island that we can use to repair it.
Good point. Well, the sun's up. Let's poke around and see what the sea witch has hidden.
Back at the hut, Davine, a woman steps inside, pushing aside the beaded curtain made of seashells. She says, "What are you doing in my home?" She's a middle-aged woman, very tanned skin, simple garb.
I present her with the flower. Please I beg your forgiveness for this intrusion. It was not intentional. It was a spell gone awry.
What in Saint's hell am I supposed to do with this? And she like tosses the flower away.
I have many remedies and other apologies to make, but it was not my intention to violate your home. I am Divine. I am only a seeker of
Oh, shut up, woman.
knowledge. Well, then I'm not sorry. Why are you being so rude?
And she says, oh, I know now what you are. You're here to gather treasures, offerings given to the Queen of Tides.
Do you not believe in the Queen of Tides?
I believe in the Leviathan. I believe in Saint Exodius, who I am a dutiful priestess of.
I am here to gather enough wisdom and power to rebuild what has been taken from me by those who do not believe.
What do you know about people taking away things from you because of what you believe?
The entirety of my tribe is scattered to the wind with no home. For years, I have wandered this earth looking for enough strength and power to seek my vengeance upon those who burned my people to the ground.
Well, until the day of your wrath comes, would you like a bit of tea?
Yes, please.
And she puts the water on the kettle. She says, so what happened out there? Sound like a lot of chaos.
I don't know where that creature came from.
Yeah, there are all manner of deep and terrible things in the ocean. Saint Exodius, of course, is their shepherd. And it is rare, though, for one to come to the surface like that. It makes me think that the saint herself must have some sort of anger with us. That means people like me must redouble their efforts to please her, or to at least maintain some sort of balance.
And how do you keep her peace?
Well, it's not so much a matter of appeasing her as it is, keeping her story alive. There are many sisters and many saints, but only a few rise above the others in their power. Saint Exodius is one such. I'm sure you know that.
I certainly believe.
The other is the Lightbringer, Saint Ara, the light. Who has need of torches down below? None.
Unfortunately, there will always be weak men who choose to dismiss what is plainly in front of their faces, including the light and the sea, and all the powers within.
Well spoken. Well, here's your tea. Drink it down, and then you can skedaddle, go looking for your cove and your treasures or whatever else you need to have your revenge or your revolution.
Your hospitality is most welcome. I appreciate you.
Yes, my hospitality is boundless, fathomless, like the ocean.
Much like herself, I'm sure.
Meanwhile, Torum and Ahmed. There is, in fact, a storm forming, gathering over the island. You can hear the rumble of thunder. The wind is whipping up. It's going to get pretty messy soon. You'll notice that there are scattered across the rocky slopes coins, fragments of ornate pottery, waterlogged books, evidence of shipwrecks, perhaps, or maybe things that have washed ashore from the various offerings over the years. You will have to find shelter soon. Torm, what do you do?
If Ahmed is not looking, I would be picking up some of the coins while scoping out the shoreline for perhaps a cave or a lee of a rock that we could set up a fire.
Tell you what you do see is a large overturned boat. There are holes in it, so it's not any good for sailing, but it might make good shelter.
I will go peer through the holes or stick my head in.
Indeed. You actually see inside the overturned boat what appears to be an oilskin satchel. Do you reach down and try to retrieve it?
Of course.
Inside the satchel are supplies, perhaps from a previous explorer. Hooks, diving fins, and rope, but also a small bottle of wine, a wedge of cheese, some dried fish.
I will draw that out and call out to Ahmed. We could use this as shelter. And there are supplies. For a while, at least. A night.
I'll holler back over the wind. Is that cove, the one you can see at low tide, is that on this island or is that on the shore?
I should hope it's on this island.
I'm glad you found a shelter, but it seems like before the storm just sort of washes everything away, we might want to try and find that cove.
I won't argue. And I'll just sling the satchel over my shoulder and walk up the beach toward Ahmed.
So you were going where now then?
You had mentioned at the start of this a rumor of a cove.
You're looking for a cove,
visible at
yeah.
low tide.
Yeah.
And sort of with, in character was sort of asking, is that on this island?
It is, yeah. This is where you intend to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also just for the sake of danger, kind of pushing away from shelter.
Yeah. You will eventually get caught up in the storm. The storm begins to buffet the island pretty badly. There are debris blowing in your face. It's hard to even stand up. You're eventually, whether you want to or not, you'll have to scramble underneath hedge or trees in order to keep the worst of it off of you. As you sit there in the cold and blowing wind and rain, Ahmed and Torum, what comforts do you miss from home in this wild place?
Harkening back to the scene with Davine drinking tea, I miss kind of morning ritual, making the cup of tea, the steam rolling up through the sunlight. I'm out here cold and shivering, wet, buffeted.
I think Torum is a bit of a voracious reader. If there's ever any moment where he is not mentally engaged, he feels restless and uncomfortable. And without his books and scrolls at hand, he feels unmoored.
Davine, this woman, this priestess of St. Exodius, she says, well, storm's getting pretty bad out there. I suppose it'd be cruel for me to cast you out now.
I would appreciate a place for tonight, I would be happy to give you any anti-rot balms or things that perhaps you will know.
The deep provides, so long as you give to the deep. Those fools in the village, they don't have it completely wrong, you know. Here she takes out a big wash basin filled with water. She says, offerings. You have to make an offering for the bounty that has been provided to you by Saint Exodius, the bounty being you ending up in my hut. And then she goes and she has a bunch of like rats in a cage. Filthy, fat, nasty sorts of rats. She says, don't worry, we're not going to eat them. And she takes one, plunges it in the water, and holds it underneath until it stops moving. Make a ruin roll.
6.
The ruin goes up. She says, all right then, make your offering.
I reach for a rat. And there are just 2 tears as I watch it fight to stay alive as I hold it under the water until it stops moving.
And when you're done, she leans into you and she says, my dear, you are very blessed. Look there. And you will notice that a number of these small crabs have gathered on the ground at your feet. They raise up their little pinchers. She says, it is a communion with the deep, a coral of crabs. Saint Exodius loves you very much, my dear. And so concludes Ring 2. Let's do Stars and Wishes.
Whew. Sorry, I got chills.
It was very good. I liked it a lot, actually. It was really good. And just the vibe was good. Scenes were good. I thought the Devil's Bargains changed things in really interesting ways. I've run this a few times, but this felt like a really unique take on Gift of the Sea, the way it played out. So yeah, very enjoyable.
I really enjoyed the line, Jason, from The Witch of until the day of your wrath comes, would you like a bit of tea? That's tremendous. What else? Good visuals, just like all the weird little nuances. The paint the scene questions really do layer up to make it into a living space.
Yeah, this one has really good questions in it. I mean, some that I provided, but some that are also in the incursion. And yeah, the answer is really great. I feel like they helped tell us a lot. I feel like we learned a lot about these characters despite we had a fairly limited time with them. So yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
I'll go. Stars. There was a moment where, Brian, you just typed in the chat after you summoned that Cerberus walrus that you just typed oops. that was really excellent for me as a player because it was that moment of chaos that we're kind of always looking for in Trophy, and I liked that a lot. And also the whole exchange between Ahmed and Torum in the boat where it started, row you fool, and that whole exchange was a lot of good role play. Even though a lot of my character development was solo, I still felt like all of the NPCs were there to both torment and help me, as is the way. And yeah, it just made for really good texture and a lot of really fun ideas to bounce off of. Wishes, I just hit 5 ruin, gentlemen, so I'm looking forward to betraying you.
I'll go. The way that we came in at Greentide and the old fisherman was there to greet us. I enjoyed everyone's trying to not just say, yeah, we're here for the treasure, except Torm, who doesn't really care. But the way that he handled that and the not so subtle escrow bribe was very very charming. The Cerberus walrus was great, not I think what you expect from a Leviathan, so it was very fresh and surprising take on it. I really liked, yeah, the Jason, your something is inside this making an uncomfortable noise is always good to bring out, and this one was just a perfect implementation. I wish, I guess, that the devil's bargain with the teleporting the victim out had been chosen, because that would have been fun to see where that went. But I also like that the witch on the island is a big star, and also Ahmed making real good friends on his first night on the island. Good for him.
Yeah, another star for me is I actually really love that first. I always love that first ring in Gift of the Sea because it has so much like NPC interaction and just the sort of like midsummer, like kind of weird local religious culture thing going on. It's just the tension is always really high, but also you do a lot. It's a lot more social than Trophy usually is, and so that's really really fun. And it was fun to see that as well. My wish. I am very curious to see how the group gets reunited. I am curious to see, well, a wish for me is I'm going to go to Trophy Loom and do a little bit more research on Saint Exodius because she is one of the major saints after Ara the Torchbearer. And just to kind of get some more of that like Saint Exodius like lore into the story. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And I also like that it's fun because like it's really like kind of perfect in terms of like the Trophy setting because it's like local religious beliefs mixed with monsters mixed with like the saints, right? Like, and that confluence is really fun in Trophy because the setting of Trophy is in this really like interesting place. Like it's just after a massive cataclysm with a church trying to pick up the pieces, but also making all the same mistakes that led to the original cataclysm. So, and so whenever we get to see those forces at play, it's very enjoyable. Any other stars or wishes? Or just anything else you want to say? Okay. In that case, I shall stop the recording.